The question is, what is a reasonable time frame to be successful?
Okay.
Now, it's a great question, and that caught my attention. Thanks for joining me here today, Ash. And I guess we start with, obviously, successful can mean a lot of different things. To many people, successful means you go to the club, you have a good time, and you have archery as your hobby for your entire life. That is definitely successful. I'm assuming this person who asked this is meaning about winning tournaments, winning championships, winning international events. I'm assuming that's the angle they're coming from. And it's so open-ended. It's an interesting, I guess, so if we take successful as being, we'll start off with being like successful at a national level. And actually when it comes to national, international, all of these, it depends where you are in the world. It makes a huge difference to this, because different countries have different strengths in different sports, and even within different categories. There's some countries who have super strong recurve women and the men are not quite as good. And then you've got countries that are the other way around, or they've got really good compounds and the recurves aren't as good. So it really does depend where you are. And how do we break this down, Ash? What do you think? Is your shooting progressing as you like, or would you like some expert coaching from a friendly face? If so, the details are in the description.
So I think it's a really difficult question to answer because, it's quite open-ended.
Should we give some examples?
Yeah, it's quite open-ended, which I kind of like in a way, because obviously successful depends on the individual person. But I think if we, like you mentioned, if we say okay, how long is it going to take someone who starts? How long is it going to take them to shoot? Let's say 600 on a 720 seems to be everyone likes that number, right? When you're starting out, how much to get to a 620, 600.
And we'll talk about that for recurve and compound.
Yeah. And then I feel like 640 might be another one. And then maybe talking about national level. I think it's hard talking about certain levels because, like you said, every country, some country you might shoot 600 and be first in the country. And in Korea, you'd be about 5,000, maybe actually more, 10,000th. So yeah, it just depends so much. I guess
I want to give you an example then. I'm going to start with an example of the fastest development I've ever had.
Yeah.
And that would be in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I had an athlete that when I was introduced to her, she had been only doing archery. I think she'd been doing archery 4 weeks. So she wasn't a total beginner, but
pretty much,
say somewhere between 4 months, 4 weeks. She'd just started archery and she'd just been given a compound bow a week before I turned up. And working with me 6 days a week, after a year, she was, I want to make sure I got this right. She was definitely a medalist at the Arab Indoor Championship. I can't remember if it was bronze, silver or gold. But anyway, we've definitely called getting a medal at an international event. We'll definitely call that successful. So that was a 12-month journey from starting archery to being an international medalist.
And
that is about as extreme as I know.
What about, wasn't there an athlete you coached in the UAE as well that went from, I'm not sure if she was a beginner, but she had a score level that you could probably give as an example, right?
But this is where it gets a little bit. So this is someone who'd been shooting recurve for many years. Let's say a young lady, she'd been doing recurve. Let's say she's been doing recurve 4 or 5 years. I want to say her recurve level was around 500. She's probably shouting at the video now saying, no, coach, I was much better than that. But let's say around 500. And I had a month to get her shooting ladies compound for an international event that we were hosting in the country. So we had no ladies compounds. We didn't have a team. And I had a month to make a team. And I want to say at the end of that month, again, almost coaching with her almost every day. And she got herself to a level, I want to say that was maybe 615, I think, within a month.
That's a good effort.
And 9 months later, we had a silver medal at the Arab Outdoor Championships, and we got within 1 point of getting the gold medal. So again, that's another extreme journey. And I think after a year, after a year, I want to say the scores, I think we're looking at 650, 660s, I think. After about 14 months, we were up to about 670.
That's
Now
quite fast.
I want to say now, I think after a year and a half, I think she's had a 680. Forgive me if I'm wrong, because sadly I left the country, but we still obviously keep up to date with each other. And so that is quick development. You can definitely develop quicker as a compound archer as you can as a recurve archer. It definitely helps if you've got an athlete who's been shooting recurve for many years, and then I'm going to change them over, because you don't have to teach them how to stand on the line. You don't have to teach them how to, do all of those other things. But compound is the fastest development. And then also if you go, typically there's less athletes in ladies compound. So that's going to make development even faster. And also the countries in the Middle East, archery is really popular and successful now, but it's still quite new. Many of these countries, you go back 20 years, they didn't really have an archery federation. So they have developed at rocket speed. But still, the category that's going to give you the fastest development is ladies compound. And especially if you have someone like myself go in with many years of world-class technical knowledge, and a lot of the other people in the country, because they haven't been doing archery as long, don't have as much knowledge. That gives us an advantage that we can make those big gains, make those big advantages. So you can develop super fast. Now, if I was doing that the same with an athlete in Great Britain, it would just take, you could get them to the same score levels. The score level would be the same progression, but obviously a 650 in Great Britain will get you a totally different finishing place to than a 650 at the UAE championships, So it's all about, the score level should be the same no matter where you are in the world, but it's where that score gets you. Just like you're saying with the Korean recurves. A score that might win you the selection shoot in Great Britain might get you 28th place. I'm being generous here, in Korea. So it depends where you are, but being in a European country makes your development to the top slower, but you might have good facilities, good coaches, be surrounded by more people who have more in-depth knowledge, so maybe you can develop faster. But the possibilities are there to transform your shooting in 12 months, for sure. But again, these are all, I'm working with people every single day. And that's why we can really push forward.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to ask. It's basically about that. I mean, a couple of things, but it's like how many iterations you get on what you're doing, the frequency of the contact with someone, because the worst thing really, if you're wanting to improve quickly, the worst thing you can do is spend time doing the wrong thing or learn something and then regress to something bad. And in my thought, when you mentioned about it earlier, about compound being a lot quicker to develop to a high level than recurve, I was thinking about, okay, why is that the case? For me, I feel like it's because essentially it's easier to continue doing the right thing with compound because you haven't got the extra poundage. Because there are examples, for example, in Korea, the first time the kids at like their school shoot 30 meters, they'll shoot a 345. First time, 30 meters, it's not a big deal. And when you think about it, 345 is not that difficult at 30 meters because it is fairly close. There's not that much wind, skill, and all that aiming off and stuff. And if you do have a general good full draw position, you know how to expand, and you have a decent release, then it is pretty manageable. And I feel like this is where the real difference is. Like your example with the athletes there, you were able to basically coach them consistently so that they started correctly and they have this excellent foundation, right?
You've hit the nail on the head. The key piece of the jigsaw puzzle that enabled these ladies to make such rapid development is they had never shot the release aid incorrectly. And that is it. Because they never had any bad habits. They don't even know what the bad habits are. And from their first shot, they shot a surprise shot, and we were able to build on that. And that is the reason why you can develop so fast, because they never learnt bad habits and they were always on the right track. And because sometimes I'll meet a more established athlete and it might take me 6 months to get rid of the bad habit, because even if I've corrected it, you can see that their brain is wanting to go back to it. So maybe they've done it perfectly good in practice, and then they go to the competition under pressure, the brain wants to go back to the old program because that's what they've done for 10 years. So it's a bit crazy. So probably if I had a competition where I had to make the best compound archer as quick as possible, I would choose a recurve archer who's changing over. So they've learnt the shooting form, we can turn our hand easy. They've learnt the shooting position, but they've got no bad habits with the release aid. And I would make much faster progress with them than I would with taking a compound archer who's been shooting 15 years incorrectly. But don't get me wrong, a lot of the time, within a month, I can scrub those bad habits and then we're on the same path. But sometimes, depends how ingrained they are, there's a roll of the dice about how easy we can change it. But yeah, and I think the reason you touched on there, that why do I think compound you're able to develop faster? I think it's because there's a shorter list of things you have to do to an expert level to be successful. For the example I'll give, if you're shooting your release aid correctly and you've got a relative level of strength and stability, you can get away with murder on your shoulder position and your arm position. We've had world champions where their arm is bent. We've had world champions where their arm is straight. If they're doing the release aid, the mental and the physical well, there's a wider range of technical positions you can get away with and still be world class. So that's why. Whereas the recurve, you've got to have world-class body position, world-class front arm, world-class shoulders. There's more critical links in the chain, whereas Absolutely. The compound, especially in the more developing countries, and I don't mean developing economically, I mean developing from an archery point of view, when they haven't got that established world-class level, if you teach someone world-class compound release aid shooting, I feel that gets them in, that almost like, if I do that, you'll be on the national team. And actually, if I think about it, I think it's right. I think with all of these countries, every time someone actually learned how to shoot a surprise shot, they always made it onto the national team. So that was one skill I had to teach them. One skill. Yeah. So every day, 4 hours a day, we are working on one thing. Now, of course, I try and move everything else in the right direction. But the only thing I'm precious of, the only thing that I know is going to make the difference is how they shoot that release aid. And that's the thing that's going to set them up for life and hopefully give them a 10-year plus career on the national team.
Because I guess if you have a great structure and you're in a nice position and you do all that right and then you just punch the release aid, it's just going to be terrible anyway. Like it's not going to work, is it?
Well, no, at the moment there's people doing that who get onto the national team. But they're going to not be at an international level. So when I take a relatively new person with less experience, probably less strength, but they're doing that one skill higher, that'll move their score. So in many ways, they would score lower than the other archer if you were critiquing their technique. Yeah. They haven't got the practice, they haven't got the strength, but because this one skill makes such a difference, they're able to leapfrog all of their experienced people. But they have a lot of resistance when people have been shooting the wrong way for so long. I probably shouldn't mention this, but I had someone who's like, after I gave my speech on how we teach people to shoot compound when I first arrived in a country, he said, it won't work here. Arabs are not the same. Arab women are not going to be giving away which area of the world it's in. These girls won't be able to do that. And I was like, well, I really don't think so. I don't see any physical difference, really. Many of these Arab girls are a similar height, similar strength. I don't see the problem. And yeah, within 9 months, this girl was shooting 56 pounds, shooting international medals and, bringing medals back to the country, she was immensely proud of. You can do it. Yeah. You just need that guidance. But if you've never seen people do it, why would you believe that this one skill is the key to unlocking 90% of compound success?
And that, I guess, proof that it works in that time frame must have been good for everyone to see as well, because then it's obvious that this actually does make a difference. This is a meaningful skill.
Consistently beating the man who said that the women couldn't do that.
Okay.
By about 15 points within 6 months.
Okay, yeah, that's probably a point proven, isn't it? I think. Yeah.
I don't mention any of that because I'm the bigger guy. I just let the results speak for themselves. If you stayed till the end because you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing. It really helps me.